from Morocco, say Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, and perhaps if you could include Sudan into it. This region, as you see, is surrounded by Mediterranean, Atlantic, and the Red Sea. So, cornered, sided by ocean, the waterways on all three sides. Number two, this region, Europe considers it as a neighborhood. This is because if you take the Mediterranean as a no man's land, then Europe's borders are with North Africa. And this region is also supposed to be, next slide please. Now, let's see what are their geopolitical features. One thing, they all have colonial past, entire like all of Africa, like Pakistan and the subcontinent. And because of that, they also have unresolved border disputes between Morocco and Algeria. Say people say Sahrawi Republic, between Sudan and Egypt, between every country has some or other problem. But the common thing among them all is the language. They're all Arab countries. The other commonality is, the other feature is the Muslim. They are all Muslim majority states. So, and the third, let's say, one of the distinguishing feature is they are liberal and progressive people. All the countries from Morocco to Egypt. They are also members of Arab League, and as I said, because Europe considers them as neighbors, so they are all engaged in Euro-Mediterranean partnership by European Union, which were their colonial masters before. And in the 21st century, I should say, at the end of say 20th and beginning 21st century, they have started having greater dialogue and cooperation with China, India, and other economies like Turkey, UAE. They all have a structured dialogue with them. Last year, they signed, they had signed earlier, but last year they all ratified the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is an amalgamation of all the trade blocks in Africa. And if, that's a big if that does materialize, Africa will become one of the largest trading bloc in the world. Next slide, please. Every region or country maintains relations based on certain interests. And these interests are basically economic interests. Be it colonization, be it the Iraq war, be it Afghan war, be it any dispute, it is always on economic interests and other geographical interests too. So what are the strengths and weaknesses of the region? I have just mentioned these 5 countries. In fact, I included Sudan into it because it's almost like in North Africa, but it's not really, it doesn't really matter whether you include it or not. All the countries together, they have like 212 million population. Sorry, 242. 7.6 million square kilometer of area. $722 billion of foreign trade, of which imports are 200 billion and 166 become their exports. I've also tried to put it against Pakistan. What could our interest be? And what is our capacity? Pakistan's population is almost, taking Sudan out, it's more than all the other countries. But our, and our areas obviously, but the GDP is, almost a third of them all together. And obviously the imports are 50 billion, exports 23 billion. But here lies the opportunity for Pakistan, that their exports market is 166, ours is 50 billion. So we can import if we want to. Not that much as India or China can or Turkey can, because they are trillion-dollar economies, but we have little scope there. But their imports are 208 billion, and ours are only 20, our exports are 23 billion. So if we want to explore the African market, Africa, I'm just, of this only North Africa I'm saying. Entire Africa is a different thing. But only this part is also substantial. Next slide, please. Now, what has been our relationship with these countries? Pakistan supported these countries in those days. All countries were, except Egypt, they were all fighting the colonization. And Pakistan was a newly independent state which had, which was in a complete mode of support to decolonization. So we wholeheartedly supported these independence movements in all these countries. And that they do acknowledge, but there's a time. The time has passed. Those leaders who got our support, the people who got our support, they passed away. It's a new generation. They don't maybe remember it unless they go and read the book. And we also quickly established the diplomatic missions in all these countries. We have diplomatic missions, not in the rest of Africa, but in all the North African countries, we do have. We also have convergence of views on major issues of regional and international importance, because they are Muslim countries. They have the same trade interests. They have the same, interest in global issues, say extremism, fundamentalism, counterterrorism, so many issues. We all have similar circumstances. The other thing is that Pakistan has also maintained neutrality in their bilateral disputes. For example, between Egypt and Sudan, between Algeria and Morocco, or on Western Sahara, we have kind of been able to maintain a distance. And so the reservoir of goodwill is huge, but it's out of economic focus. Next slide, please. What are the challenges? North Africa especially, I'm not talking of whole Africa, but North Africa is closely linked economically, strategically, politically with the European Union. So it is pretty hard for, let's say, us, even for our exporter, for our investor, for a common man, to go and foster the trade and economic cooperation with these countries. Because if they find, let's say, a microphone made in Germany, Italy, or France, they're not going to buy one made in Pakistan, or even a pencil. So that is one that we are faced with tough competition. The other thing is that there is a lack of political contacts with these countries. Our leaders would love to visit, I'm not trying to criticize, be critical, but they would like to visit Western Europe and America rather than, or even Gulf countries, rather than crossing over to Africa. Obviously, there's a lack of trade and economic cooperation with Pakistan. except with Egypt, I think the rest, I'll come to that. Bilaterally, let me say that with the Tunisia, with the Morocco, we import phosphates from Morocco, which is our major import from Morocco. And with Egypt, we have good trade, good volume of trade, but again, there's the willingness, I should say, is not as much to utilize that potential. But let me, I think, if I have to focus on these countries, let me give you one example of Morocco. I was there in late 80s, and one day I went to their foreign office for a statement on India-Pakistan relations. And usually they were very, very open and very friendly. They still are. Morocco, we have excellent bilateral relations with Morocco, and Moroccans do acknowledge the wholehearted support that they received from us during their independence movement. But they said, brother, we have, I said, we have a lot of, we import phosphates from you so much that, the trade balance is always in their favor because we only import the rock. They said, yeah, but, India has $1 billion investment here. They have a phosphate plant. If India imported, I think, 75% of their phosphates. So he said, yeah, okay, you import 10% of it, and we have very excellent relations, but, our industry will simply collapse. And phosphate is Morocco's major industry export. So that is what the challenges that our businessmen will have to face while establishing their foothold in North Africa. Anyways, so the lack of trade and economic cooperation, and then lack of means of communication, obviously. No flights, no direct flights, no shipping lanes, no people-to-people contact. These countries were known for political stability. The kingdoms or autocratic rules or whatever, they were known for political. But the Arab Spring has come to undermine it. There's instability in all these countries, from Morocco right until Egypt, although controlled. But it is not that guaranteed stability as it used to be. This is one of the factors that one has to now bear in mind, that it will not be only a goodwill gesture that, okay, we are brothers or sisters. Yeah, fine, we are brothers, sisters, but, we have to do some business too. So, and the other thing is, obviously, as you say, saw from that slide of the basic facts, do we have the capacity to? Our, exports, imports, foreign trade. Foreign trade is normally usually the measure of cooperation or the potential that exists. Africa has a lot of potential, but do we have the export potential? Our total exports are $23 billion. Now, how much are we going to export? Anyways, this is our capacity issues, nothing to do with Africa. Also the linguistic difficulties, but I don't count the linguistic difficulty because this is mostly the French belt. Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria is French. But Arabic, I don't understand why can't we speak Arabic. If we can speak Arabic in UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, why can't we speak Arabic in Morocco, Algeria, or Tunisia? But I mean, that's just our. And as Ata Jamal said at the outset, I think it's a syndrome, basically. Oh no, I don't want to go to Africa. I would like to go to Germany, France, Italy, Europe. I mean, even in Europe, you would see we have a very particular, I think, penchant for Western Europe. We won't go to Hungary, Czechoslovakia, or Ukraine. That's also Europe. But we will try to go to Western Europe, but that's our thing. And in Arab countries, we like to go to the Gulf countries, but not to Jordan, Egypt, or beyond. Next slide, sir. The opportunities. Well, as Tajamal said again, strategic location, vibrant economies. They are focused. No, we have now of late, last year, we focused on the, This is the focus of the emerging economies. Emerging economies is like China, India, Turkey, UAE, or Brazil. These economies are focusing. If you look at entire African continent, Africa's trade with EU 30 years ago was, I think it was more than 50%. I don't have exact figures. Now, the trade volume has doubled, but the share of Europe in trade with Africa has come down to 30%. Why? Because this share is now taken by the emerging economies who need raw materials, who need to export their, say, second-grade products. And that is where Pakistan could also take advantage of. And these economies in North Africa, they are business-friendly. Compared to the rest, they are business-friendly. They have educated people, they have educated masses, and they are also open to business. They are also inclined to foster ties, economic ties with Asia. And for Pakistan, I think they could be and they also appreciate Pakistan's peacekeeping missions, because we have been playing a leading role. We are the largest troop provider to the peacekeeping missions of the UN. And and we are also, in this, if you look at the Red Sea, which connects up to Egypt, we are participating in the Task Force 150, Multinational Task Force 151, which works against piracy, basically. So our participation in peacekeeping is really greatly appreciated by the Africans, and these Africans do need a huge defense cooperation, for which we do have potential, in exports, in terms of exports, trainings, technology, everything. And in the economic fields, I think they play sports. For example, we make a lot of sports goods, we make surgical goods, we make other manufactured goods which we can export. But these are just, the outlines that need to be exploited further by the business community. I'm glad that the business community has now started focusing on Africa. It is not taking Africa as Africa. It is taking it as an economic opportunity.